Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about one of the biggest franchises of all time, one of the biggest stories and the most beloved series ever. I'm of course talking about Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was of course originally a book series written by J.R.R. Tolkien, and since then it's been adapted to various medias. And this includes of course the original film series. There was a sequel film series called The Hobbit. There was another spin-off. There's been video games and all kinds of cool stuff. And today we're talking about a new empire. Today we're talking about a new endeavor, a new thing that's coming from Lord of the Rings. They're currently making a TV series about the show, but it's got a lot of people worried about what's going to happen to it because apparently after they announced some casting choices, some people are starting to think that maybe this new series is getting possibly woke. It's certainly looking to make a cast that is diverse, as Hollywood would put it. And we all know when they say they want to have more diversity, it means something a little bit different typically. Usually it means less white people. It usually means the show is going to get woke and go broke. They're going to adhere to the worst kinds of social justice ideology and stuff like that might even get infused into the episodes and the story and the actual plot. We'll see how far that goes. It's still early on, but it is time and we do have enough information to start talking about it. So we're going to go over the story, the announcement, the casting, the so-called diversity, and talk more about how that's stupid. And we're going to get into all that soon, but first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. The fear of going days without power is the exact reason why I have the Fighter Flare flashlight. This is a professional grade, tactical, ultra bright flashlight. It's entirely solar powered too, so I never have to worry about batteries dying when I need it the most. And I don't have to worry about plugging it into my wall to charge it, even though that is an option too. Yes, the Fighter Flare flashlight also comes with a life-saving emergency strobe light setting, along with 4 other unique life-saving modes. This flashlight can also be seen from over 500 meters away because it comes with 800 lumens, which makes it a great self-defense tool as well because it can blind any attacker. So make sure you get your Fighter Flare flashlight today at fighterflare.com or click the link in the description below this video. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about Lord of the Rings some more. Here's an article with details. It says, the Lord of the Rings showrunners describe franchise as epic, diverse, and filled with heart. And obviously most of this sounds good, but the diverse thing is something that kind of raises red flags now. It's not because we're against diversity either. No one is saying that. No one is saying, hey, we cannot have diversity. No one is against certain people getting cast in certain parts, but let's go ahead and throw that argument out right away. So first of all, Lord of the Rings is typically set in this sort of Middle Earth region, and it's based on these sorts of legends and prophecies and stuff that happen in the European area. It's not really in Europe. It's not really in Britain, but a lot of the stuff was based there. That's where the writers from. If you read through the books, you could hear them describe things and say that people there, the hobbits and a lot of the people, essentially what ended up happening was they're white characters. They happen to be white. There's nothing wrong with that initially, nothing really wrong with that actually, but the left will tell you that's racist. If you have too many white characters in something, the liberals automatically call that racist. So this is kind of a response to that. That's why they have to diversify things and squeeze in lots of minority characters to appease the woke mobs. But the reason I bring this up now is, first of all, it's okay to write stories and have universes that are dominated, have lots of white characters. There's a majority of them. There's nothing racist about that. And in fact, all you got to do is think about the inverse of this situation and tell yourself if that is offensive. So for example, let's do this in the opposite. So now we're in white dominated Western culture. We're in either Europe, Britain, or America, which is majority white. We made these stories that have majority white characters, and then we get attacked for that and have to insert minorities. Now, what is the inverse of that? That would be the same thing as, say, if we went to a country in Africa and they had a popular book or movie series that was all black characters because they're in a black area and they're writing stuff about all these black people. And if we went over there and started inserting white characters, say, hey, you have to have more white characters or you're racist. We need diversity in these movies. That would be ridiculous. It would be the same thing if you did that with French films. If you went to France and there was a bunch of French films and it had a lot of French-based characters, and then you went and said, hey, we need some American characters in there. We need some people speaking Spanish. We need some people that are not French. You can't have all French people in your French movie. And that's just the kind of, it sounds so ridiculous because it would never happen, but that's what's going on here. That's why they're going after these big empires. It would be like if we tried to make the Wakanda movie, the Black Panther movie, like if we complained about that having too many black people, that's the same kind of thing as complaining about Lord of the Rings having too many white people. There's people like that out there, and this kind of diverse casting is a response to that. Amazon's upcoming Lord of the Rings showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay recently released a statement describing J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy franchise as epic, diverse, and filled with heart. The statement came amid a huge cast announcement that included 20 new cast members to the show. There's a picture of the book. As reported by The Hollywood Reporter, Payne and McKay stated, "The world that J.R.R. Tolkien created is epic, diverse, and filled with heart. These extraordinarily talented performers hailing from across the globe represent the culmination of a multi-year search to find brilliant and unique artists to bring that world to life anew." They added, "The international cast of Amazon's The Lord of the Rings series is more than just an ensemble. It is a family. We are thrilled to welcome each of them to Middle-earth." So this is kind of going off the assumption that diverse means better automatically, like you're automatically better because you have a group that is diverse. And that's just not true. That's just a false assumption. It can be true. It is based on some kinds of ideas that are like that because they kind of do imply here that they're getting the best of all the world, like the best of each area is coming onto this cast. I highly doubt that. I really just see them as trying to be the next Game of Thrones. They're trying to be a Game of Thrones kind of show in the Lord of the Rings universe. And Game of Thrones did a lot of this kinds of blackwashing, brownwashing, forcing in minorities and stuff like that. They did that a lot in Game of Thrones because that was a similar setup where it's like a lot of white characters because it's based in this white country. It's a fictional country, but it's inspired by these European places, by these like British places, or sometimes maybe France or a German place or Slavic or something like that, Caucasian, things like that. Sometimes even Russia gets involved. But the point is they're trying to be like this Game of Thrones version on Amazon. It's not the bad idea. Like I want to see how it works out. It's troubling when they push the diversity thing up front, but I do see it. Like I could see why you'd say Lord of the Rings world is diverse. I mean, it is. It really is. There's like hobbits and dragons, and there's all these kinds of different creatures. There's dwarfs and witches and elves and all this stuff. So it is diverse in that way. But I'm worrying if they're thinking more about diversity in the form of skin color, because that seems to be the thing that leftists and Hollywood types and these kinds of showrunners making these kinds of things, that seems to be what they're really focused on when it's diversity. They don't care about how diverse things are actually. Like, for example, you could have a lot of white actors or white characters and they could be very diverse. Like there's a lot of different kinds of white people, many countries across the globe. You could be from Iceland, South Africa, Australia. You could be Scandinavian white, German, French. I mean, there's lots of variety in there within that color. But sometimes the left just doesn't see that, and it's mostly because they hate white people. In a letter numbered 142 to Father Robert Murray, Tolkien had a different way of describing his work. He wrote, "The Lord of the Rings is, of course, a fundamentally religious and Catholic work, unconsciously so at first, but consciously in the revision." He added, "That is why I have not put in or have cut out particularly all references to anything like religion, to cults or practices in the imaginary world, for the religious element is absorbed into the story and the symbolism." Tolkien went on, "However, that is very clumsily put and sounds more self-important than I feel, for as a matter of fact, I have consciously planned very little, and should chiefly be grateful for having been brought up since I was 8 in a faith that has nourished me and taught me all the little that I know, and that I owe to my mother, who clung to her conversion and died young, largely through the hardships of poverty and resulting from it." So this is a quote being brought up because it's showing that Tolkien had a lot of religious influences. I'm not sure this will get brought up in the actual show or any of the media. Admittedly, even Tolkien himself says it's kind of subtle and in the background. But the point is, he wasn't thinking about diversity in his thoughts when he talked about his work. It could still be in there, but I think people are just interpreting it different ways. So here's the picture of the cast. As you can see, there still is a lot of traditional Lord of the Rings style actors, but they're forcing in lots of minorities too, lots of people from other countries, black guy, brown girl, all this kinds of stuff. Nothing wrong with that too. Like we're saying, we're not trying to call out any certain race. It's just interesting how this is what's cherished. This is what's propped up. If you have more minorities, you get a pat on the back. And it's not me saying, oh, I don't want that. I'm not against any kinds of actors, but it is coming into a franchise that's traditionally based on lots of white characters played by white actors. It's kind of like taking jobs from them and they're cool with that. And I mean, I don't know. It's just, if we do it in the inverse, like we were saying earlier, if you tried to take jobs or roles or anything away from a minority, from black or brown or Asian, that would be a crime. That would be a capital offense. But when it happens to white people and the stories and the media that we've created and that gets spun off, that's cherished and that's celebrated even. They want less white people. That's what diversity really means to Hollywood. That about wraps things up. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you on the next one.